My family hates that I have tattoos. I have tattoos. I have 25, and I am a tattoo artist. Okay, guys, so here's the thing. I feel like everyone always says, leave the toxic boyfriend, leave the toxic girlfriend, just like leave your toxic friends, period. But then no one talks about what you do when your parents are toxic, when they are as big of a bully, if not even worse, than the closest people you've ever brought into your life. They honestly could hurt you the hardest because they've watched you grow up. They've seen your worst moments. They held you when you were shitting and you didn't know how to not poop. And it doesn't matter if they're toxic in really major ways or if they're toxic in really small ways, whether they're trying to control your life in the way that you're dressing, or they make comments about the way you look, or they want to control what career path you choose. Obviously, when you are a dependent, when you're a minor, and you don't make your own money and live independently from your parents, this is even worse. It can be really suffocating. I am in a situation where I do not live with my family. I moved out after college. But even then, when I was living with my parents, I didn't feel suffocated. I genuinely thought they were the smartest people in the room. They were always right. And I made decisions based on what they told me was right. And then I grew up thinking all of those things. And then the moment I made decisions that were against what they approved of was when I actually saw the truth, which is that they are not the smartest people in the room. They think they know what's best for me, but they don't always know what's best for you. And it got very, very complicated because after a while, I realized that if I truly want to go as far and dream as big as I want to dream, I cannot be doing it for somebody else. And I got to be doing it for myself because it's only going to get me so far. And I realized that because I thought that they were right all the time, I thought their dreams for me were my dreams. And then when I just tested the waters of doing something that they weren't approving of, I was like, oh, actually they want what they think is best for me. Whatever they think is best for me is the only option. Anything otherwise is wrong in their eyes. And so I'm in a situation, and I'm sure many of you are, that's why you clicked on this video, where you're not really sure what to do about it. Are you going to be somebody who lets the toxic boyfriend go? And is this the same thing as that situation where you have a toxic boyfriend and you should let them go? Well, basically there's two extremes, right? So there's one extreme, you're just your parents' bitch. You just do everything your parents say and you're fine with that. And then you have the other side that's very extreme. They cut off their parents completely and go do their own thing. But I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle because I love my parents as much as I love myself. And so there's a little negotiation that needs to happen. And that's what this episode is for. I do not have all the answers. Clearly from all the episodes, if you haven't gotten the gist of my podcast so far, I will never tell you what to do. I will give suggestions on what I think would work out and why, and we talk about it. That's what we do in this podcast. I really despise listening or watching or like consuming anything where anybody tells anybody that there's only one right way to do it, and that is the way to the top, and that is your guarantee. Like, that is not true at all. So everything that I give and say is a suggestion. And I'm also as confused as you because I am figuring this shit out in real time. Like, I am dealing with this right now, which is why it's the topic of today's episode. I hinted at it in my last episode. My family hates that I have tattoos. I have tattoos. I have 25, and I am a tattoo artist. So yeah, and I've always been the goody two-shoes daughter who did everything, and then I flipped the switch very, very recently, moving to New York, doing all these things, and it was not in their cards for me to look the way I do and to have a career that I chose. So here I am. But I still have not cut off my parents yet, even though they're very angry at me at times for what I've done. So what is the issue here? Why is this such a big deal? To introduce it, I was looking at Ocean Vuong's interview. He is a poet. He's known for several famous books. I think, only when a mother passes away do they realize, oh, wait a minute. There's another level of freedom that I don't know. And the fork in the road for me was either I stopped doing it altogether or I start doing whatever I wanted. And I didn't know that I was writing for beyond myself or elsewhere until she passed. And I started to see pleasure again. I became a child again. You lose your mother and you lose your North Star, at least for me. And I became such a child. And like any child, I look at the blank page and I said, how do I play? Where do I locate pleasure? And the only place I can look to was the poems, because it was the only place I found linguistic pleasure. So this is him realizing that what he thought he was doing for his mom was actually something that he loved for himself. Luckily for him, most people are not that lucky where they realize what they were doing for their parents is completely opposite from what they actually want to do, and they were not listening to themselves. And it's interesting how when you lose your parent, you become a child again, because when you are a child, you're very, very expressive, and parents are not as strict on kids to explore different things usually. And so you have a lot more fun, you're a lot more open when you have a child like mine, which you often lose if you really follow a parent and what they say, and kind of lose yourself in that case. Because I feel like truly, no matter how old you actually are, our natural state is to be like a child, exploratory, not knowing everything, being okay with not knowing everything, and just experiencing life. Like, it's not that deep. It's very real, and this is very important because you will lose several years of your life. You will lose yourself, and you never get the time back. Once you realize it, all those times where you were neglecting yourself and not choosing yourself or listening to yourself, you're like losing the opportunity to discover yourself, and it feels bad. It feels bad. You can't get it back. Yeah, so why tolerate it? Why not just cut your parents off? Because I love them. I was trying to figure this out. I was like, yes, I totally agree with cutting off a toxic friend, a toxic partner, but I think it's different with a parent because there isn't really a standard to always communicate with your parents to have that love. It's different with friends and partners. They expect you to constantly communicate with them once every week or multiple times a week, which is more normal. And there's also an expectation to live with them and whatnot. And so that toxicity is prominent. It's constantly there. But then when you're with your parents that are toxic, you have the ability to move away with them and still have a good relationship with them and still be not losing your shit because you are still in a relationship with them. And so I think it is different in that way. And I honestly, at this point, I'm like, I probably unconditionally love my parents because yes, they've done a lot of things for me, but there's a lot of things that they've done that were really, really messed up. But I still will fight for them, and I'm still here for them no matter what. And even though I give my parents unconditional love, I think they give me unconditional love, but it doesn't feel like it. And that is where we have problems, okay? Your parents, in their mind, their intent is good. They love you, and whatever they do for you, most parents, they're doing it out of a place of love. So why does it hurt so bad? And why is it a problem? Like, why can't we just accept that as love? So there's two parts. The first is that it's not actually love, it's ownership. And the second is that we feel indebted to our parents. You should never feel indebted to somebody that you're in a relationship with because it is not a transaction. I truly think a relationship you want to keep in your life, and that isn't a business relationship. It's like solely just a relationship of life. It's one that is founded on love. There's no transactions happening here. There's no, I give you one, you give me one, we owe each other. We're not counting anything here. When you feel like you owe somebody something, giving somebody something, it's a transaction, it's a business thing. And whenever that happens, there's less choice, obviously, because you feel indebted to somebody. You don't do things for yourself. Instead, you do something for somebody else. There is that sense of like, I'm less than you than the other person, because there is this gap of things you need to owe them, which is why it feels very painful and you can feel very guilty. This is very common for immigrant relationships. The second, and I think this is the big thing. We're hitting it on. Okay, so I was thinking about this more and I realized what everyone thinks is love is not love, it's ownership. So according to Bell Hooks, All About Love, this whole book is about the definition, how people and different cultures see love. And so in her book, All About Love, Bell Hooks says, love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely both an intention and an action. Will also applies choice. We do not have to love. We choose to love. And so, like I said, there's less choice when you feel like you owe somebody. There's guilt in it. So that's not love, right? It's an action that you have to do constantly. And there's 5 key things that she believes makes up love. So this is ideal. Obviously, it's not realistic because all of us have gone through trauma. We don't actually know what love is because people don't look this shit up and care to look this shit up, when it's so funny because it's what we're all striving for. We don't even know how to put into words what we're striving for. Funny. But yeah, there's 5 key things. So when you have these 5 key things, you are giving love and or you are getting love. You feel like you're getting love. Obviously, there's different ways of showing it, but essentially, you need to hit 5 things. First is care, commitment, trust, responsibility, and respect. And I'm going to give the definitions of these because we all are going to say we know it already. We learned this in like 2nd grade, whatever. But at the same time, in relation to love, it's very specific. And it's good to be very specific so that you know if you've basically, quote unquote, checked the box. And honestly, this has been huge. When I learned this, I was like, this is what made me realize what my parents are doing. Yes, they're doing it out of love, but it doesn't feel like love because all 5 things don't exist in the relationship. So the first is care. This involves actively nurturing the well-being of oneself and others, showing concern and attention. Commitment. It's the conscious decision to stay connected and invested in the relationship, even though things might come up. Trust. Being honest, reliable, having a sense of safety between the relationship on both sides. Responsibility. Responsibility is taking ownership of your own actions and the impact it will have on the relationship, and then being accountable for that behavior. So you're only going to do things that you know will benefit in the long run or protect the relationship. Respect. Valuing another person's individuality, thoughts, feelings, autonomy, and treating it all with consideration. Okay, so those are the 5 things. And then I realized, comparing it to my dad, and also I think most immigrant parent to child relationships, there's often a loss of trust and respect. So like I said, trust built on honesty, reliability, and a sense of safety in the relationship. When your parents raise you from when you're young, it's difficult for them to trust you fully because they've only seen you as a kid. This is just a natural thing for most human beings. They can only go based off what they've seen in the past. What is in the future, they don't know if it's certain, but they know what's certain based on the past. So if you believe that you are going to have the potential and will be successful as a CEO of a company, but your parents have only seen you, I don't know, get B's in a class, really struggle in school, they're going to not believe in you. They don't have that trust in you. And it is very logical. If you did have trust in somebody and in their potential, then that would exist. And it usually doesn't because of what I've said. The parents have seen you in your worst. And so how can they fully trust you and see that potential and rely on you for bigger things that they have never seen, which is why they usually hold their kids back. And then the last one, which is respect. which is what I am also lacking in my relationship with my dad, is he doesn't value my individuality, thoughts, feelings, and autonomy, because I cannot get tattoos in his eyes and make these big career decisions for myself, which makes me feel closed off and feel like I don't have a sense of freedom. And it could be as big as that, but even as my clothes, like my mom and my grandma don't like it when I leave the house wearing certain things. But I'm like, dude, I'm my own person and I have my own feelings and I have my own personal sense of style. And it just happens to also be that I hold my fashion sense and what I'm wearing very closely to my identity. I like to wear physically how I feel and who I am. And so trying to mold that for me in specific is really painful and is like a slap to my face to say that who you are truly is not enough, is not right. I don't approve of it. Because of those two things that are missing, I don't feel loved in the way that I should be feeling. Even though in their mind, they're thinking of what's best for me. They think to themselves, starting a tattoo business is not stable. Spending a lot of time on podcasting seems like a waste of time. And why don't you spend all that time investing so that you have money in the future and security? Or don't wear certain clothes because people are going to judge you a certain way. So they're trying to protect me. It's all coming from a place of love and goodness in their hearts, but it isn't love. What it actually is, guys, is ownership. This is it. And I hope you guys are all like mind blown like I am. But basically, if you feel very suffocated in your relationship with your parents and you're kind of like wondering what's going on, it's because they're mistaking love as ownership. In this article, this is so nerdy of me. I didn't listen to the podcast. I read the entire article, which is equivalent to 21 minutes of the podcast, from the Circular Economy Show podcast. It's called The Psychology of Ownership in the Circular Economy. So this is nothing to do with actual love and relationships. It has to do more with owning something. But it really is the same, you guys. In the article or in the podcast, the philosopher David Hume is mentioned, where he was arguing that ownership is a stabilizing influence on society. And the article continues to say, the dream of property ownership became a central part of the American dream as it developed throughout the mid-20th century. So owning something is a sense of stability and security. Your parents think that they own you like they would own a Barbie doll, a Ken doll. Even though they won't admit it, it is actually that. Because just think about what you do to the things that you own. You paid for it, so you value it. You alter it and you do whatever you want with it because you own it. And if somebody steals it or does something or breaks it or harms it, you're going to be very angry and upset. That sounds like how my parents and a lot of parents treat their kids. It sounds very much the same. But unlike a Ken doll and a Barbie doll, we have thoughts. We have a timeline. We have a life to live. There's also this term that comes with it. If they don't actually own us, what they're doing is feeling a sense of psychological ownership. The feeling that is experienced when an individual believes that something is theirs. So that's what your parents are feeling right now. They psychologically think that they're owning you. And in this article, they also specify the 3 key necessities of feeling like you're psychologically owning things. So let's compare this, right, to the 5 things that you need in love, the 3 things that you need for ownership. First is controlling, mastering the object, having the ability to use it and modify it if necessary. 2, creating, making something in order to use it. Knowing, having an intimate knowledge of its workings. Guys, that is the 3 things that your parents have built up over the years of your life. They've controlled you since you were little. You had to be taken care of. They were controlling you. They got to dress you up. They got to dictate where you went, what time you slept, because you couldn't speak and couldn't really do much. The second is creating, making something in order to use you. They've maybe made space in their home. They've bought things for you, toys, a rocker, They've spent money on schooling for you. So they've created and made a community even out of this whole thing that never existed in their lives so that you can exist. And then the third is knowing. They know you so well. I mean, they knew you before you knew yourself because you were just a baby that couldn't consciously form thoughts about yourself. And they were physically watching you do all these things that you don't even remember doing. And these three things, a feeling like they own you, is also connected to why you feel like you owe something back. Because now what this relationship actually is becoming is a transactional thing where they own you and you do something in return, because ownership is a capitalistic economic thing. It's not a thing of love. So again, to use the analogy of a Ken and Barbie doll, your parents owning a Ken and Barbie doll, let's say they value it, they put a lot of money in it, they can do whatever they want with it, they can dress it up a certain way, but the Barbie doll, the Ken doll doesn't say anything back. And in your case, you get to say something back because you are not an object. You're a human being that has a relationship with family members and parents, not an ownership dynamic. Okay, now with that being said, that shit is painful. You can tell your parents all you want. Some parents are going to be really open, and usually the ones that are open are usually not the ones that are relevant for this podcast. But maybe you do have some open parents that if you told them all this information, they're going to think more about it and be like, that would make sense. That's not always the case. Sometimes, and most of the times, because parents are a lot older and they're kind of set in their ways, they are not going to change even though you explain this to them. So what the hell do you do? That's the big question here. That's the big question I asked myself. I'm like, I have a toxic relationship with my dad. My dad explicitly uses terminology that suggests ownership, like where he's like, I am your father. You have no right to do anything because I am your father. Like, he has said those words, and I'm like, okay. And so what do you do about it? The first is you want to create the sense of ownership. So like I said, psychological ownership is a thing. It's the belief that you own something. Doesn't mean that you actually own it. So how can you recreate that in a sense, right? So the three components, like I mentioned, were controlling, creating, and knowing. So if you give a little bit of this taste to your parents, you can still maintain the idea that they are owning you, which they think is love, but you yourself know that it's not, and you create distance between them for your own self-love and safety and peace of mind, but you still don't completely cut them off and you keep them happy. So this is the negotiation we're going to play. It's a little bit manipulative, but at the end of the day, in this case, I think the manipulation is a good avenue to take. It's not completely all black and white. Manipulation isn't always bad. And in this case, I think it is beneficial where both parties are going to be happy and they get to be happy together. Okay, so the first is controlling, which is the mastering of the object, having the ability to use it and modify it. So I would just pick a few things, one or two things where you let your parents kind of have at it. If they don't go out of their way to do it, you can offer. Let's say your parents are very controlling, but you're like, I don't really care about my room. And your parents want to do something about how clean your room is and want to control how clean your room is. You can decide that you'll let them control that aspect of your life because that is the negotiation. And you're going to say, okay, fine, I'll keep it clean. I'll keep my room the way that you want me to keep it, because then it makes them feel like they have a sense of controlling you or modifying you, which can include fashion. Let's say fashion isn't really a big thing for you. Your parents want to shop for you, let them shop for you. You can even just suggest it and be like, hey, I really need help with my fashion. Can you help me? Or I really need help with remodeling my room. Can you help me? And that gives them a sense of ownership, of say, of controlling you in this scenario. The second is creating. So this comes hand in hand with controlling, because usually the project or the area that you're going to allow them to have more say in and control in, it's going to enable them to buy certain things, set certain things up to make that area in your life very successful in the way that they would want it. And so the creating comes hand in hand. And then last part is knowing, having an intimate knowledge of its workings. So with knowing, honestly, you don't need to tell your parents everything. They don't need to be your BFF, but telling them some things will make them feel like they have intimate knowledge of you. And I'm not talking about the surface level things. When they're asking you, hey, how are you doing? For you to be like, good, and not say anything else, you're really not enabling them to feel a sense of ownership or that they are close to you. And so giving them a little bit more information, like what's actually going to hurt if you just tell them a little bit more. Something that you would do with an acquaintance or a boss where you tell them just enough, and you keep certain parts to yourself. You don't have to tell them everything. And something that I find could be really helpful is literally saying, can I talk to you about something? Or I haven't told anybody this yet. Using those words, they will feel like they're getting some exclusive, intimate knowledge about you, and it creates a sense of ownership and safety and identity. And yeah, so I think you have to kind of see it from both sides. When your parents crash out because you're doing your own thing, they're not just losing you, but they're also losing their sense of identity. When you become a parent, it's a lot. It takes over your entire life. I'm sure they became friends with certain people and started doing certain activities, and their schedule is probably mostly taken up by you. And this creates that sense of guilt of like, I owe my parents something. But again, you did not ask for these things. You are not a baby signing a contract saying, I agree to these terms, I will return the favor. No, you just showed up. And they decided to have sex, and now you're here. And you do not owe anybody anything because they decided to have sex. And you exist. Instead, forget about the ownership part if you can even help it. And just remember that what really is hurting them is that they're losing their sense of identity. And they're also they might feel physically like they're losing you. And then if you try all these things and you feel like it's really not working, or you don't even love your parents like that, then just let them go. Because again, life's too short. You're put here with limited amount of time. You exclusively get your own set of time that no one else can experience. And the last point I'll make is the way I really like to think about this. Here's another analogy. My parents and everyone that I have in my life kind of feels like a string being attached to me to a can. So they're like the can, and I'm like, everywhere I go, they're like freaking being dragged and like clacking on the ground. It's similar to what people do after they get married. They like tie a string to a can, and then when they drive, it like makes a bunch of noise. That's how I feel like my parents are. For me, I think of the can because they're always in the back of my mind. Whatever they say, even though physically they're very far away from me, I still hear them. And obviously, the farther away I am from them physically, the quieter that can is. And for some of you guys, you might equate this to, instead of a can, to a rock. A rock that you just literally cannot move and you're like stuck to the ground. It depends on the person, obviously. But what I'm trying to do here with this advice and what I've thought about doing with my parents is I'm basically lengthening that string. They're still attached to me and they still feel attached to me, but that string is really, really long now, and so I can barely hear the can. It doesn't have to be a physical move. It can be psychological, like I said here. This is the psychological move. You've decided that what they're doing for you is out of love, but it's not actually love. It's toxic, and it's limiting who you can become and who you want to be. But you don't want to cut them all off. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. We're going to do High-Low Buffalo now, which is very random. It's the update from the past 2 weeks. The high is the good thing that happened. The low is the bad thing that happened in the past 2 weeks. And the buffalo is the weird thing that has happened in the past 2 weeks. All right, so the first is the high. And ironically enough, it was celebrating my dad's birthday. Him being a 6-year-old, but having a birthday party with several cakes and being the center of attention made me very happy. I want what's happy for him. Even if he's going to be toxic towards me, I still really care about him. And so seeing him in a room with all the people he loves and seeing everybody hang out, not on their phones, and we're just eating such good food, it made me very happy. With my low, okay, I can't give you guys too much detail about this, but there is some drama with tattooing, and it's been heavily on my mind. But for the safety of myself and some other people, I will not say anything until this kind of dies down. But I will say that this is my low because I don't want to lie to you guys. But you guys know I will give you all the truths, the tea, all the juicy details after this gets sorted out. It's just happening right now. I just can't tell you right now. Okay. Buffalo is my fashion crisis, guys. I don't know what is going on, but I have been uninspired by fashion just in general. Even on Pinterest, I'm like, guys, you can't be feeding me the same outfits and then make me feel excited and inspired. And so I am sorting out a new style that feels a lot more me. And I think it makes sense because I've changed a lot in the past few months. I've literally shifted careers. I feel a lot happier and more myself. And just by opening the curtain to who I could be and who I actually am on the inside and allowing that side of me to come out, I'm like, oh, wow, a lot of my clothes don't make sense. Oh, I bought these clothes because everyone else wore them, or because I, according to my family, look better in them. Friends, I look better in them because everyone else likes them, whatever it is. And then I realized like that's actually not me, and I want to wear things that are more me. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I know it's a really deep one. There's so many things I want to call this episode, but I specifically wanted to talk about parents and family because I don't think people talk about enough. But really the essence of this podcast is, what is love? Why does it matter? Why don't people know what it actually is? And people should. So if any of this resonated with you guys, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. I don't have all the answers. I literally am figuring it out. I researched this entire podcast just to help myself and realize that somebody else can probably benefit from it as well. So yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.